Okay, to start with one of the hottest topics of the season is actually Michelle Reimer, who is our data management technician at CPA Saskatchewan and a very familiar face to most. So Michelle's going to start the recording here for me, I think, if she hasn't already, and proceed to share her screen to walk through some of our technology basics that you need to know to ensure your compliance. So over to you, Michelle.
As Leah said, I am Michelle and I'm the data management technician. I help everybody where I can, and today I'm going to try and help you guys log into the member portal better. Something to remember is members and firms have two different logins. So a designated contact or a company administrator at a firm can have two different logins. And so you need to remember your member login is always your member email address or your preferred email address, and your firm login is your firm ID. It is very important to remember to log out of the member portal when you're finished. And it's even more important for those that have a firm and member login to make sure that you don't log in the wrong account trying to do something. One of the easy ways to tell how you're logged in is up at top. So I'm just going to log in with my little fake man. Come on, don't. And of course, it's going to be really slow now. Okay, so as you can see, I'm logged in with a member because I used a member email address. And up top here, it says my name or his name. This will tell me that I'm logged in as a member. If I was to sign out and now log in as a firm, you can see there's nothing here. It just says hi. Now, this is a bit of a giveaway because renewals are on right now, so you know this is the firm portal, but normally this would just have the similar screen to what you would see on the member side, but because there's nothing up top, you know this is the firm record. So I'm going to go back to the member record, and one of the other things I'm going to show you today is some of the things that you'll find on the member portal. So when you go to the edit my profile, actually it just could be profile, it's up top, here's my profile. If you need to get a receipt from your member fees, you will find them under the invoice/receipt button. It takes a few minutes to load because they are a big document. And there is this year's and last year's that will display on here. This is also where you can go if you happen to have any outstanding invoices, like you hit pay later on a PD course, or you hit pay later on your license renewal or your member fees. Any invoices would show up at the top here, and you can pay them there. And as you can see, this guy doesn't have any fees, so of course nothing loaded for him. But this is where you would get them. I forgot. One of the bigger things is it very important when you're logging in or when you're registering for something like a PD course or buying a passport is it needs to be under the member record. It can't be under the firm record or things just don't work. And I think it's, what did I call this, demo? When you're registering for a course, no matter whether it's a free course or one that you have to actually pay money for, you actually have to complete it all the way through to the cart in order for the registration to work. So after you click register myself, there's a button at the bottom that says proceed to checkout. I know there's no fees attached to this. This is a free course similar to the one you registered for today. But in order for it to go through, you have to hit the submit order. If you don't hit that, the registration doesn't go through. You will get a confirmation in your email. And if you don't get that confirmation, that means that you didn't register. That's a nice tip that hopefully will help. The last thing I have is logging in. If you accidentally forget your password and try to log in, you have 3 attempts before it will lock you out. So if you've tried this twice and you're still getting it incorrect, to save yourself some headache and having to contact the office to get yourself unlocked, switch over to forgot password and get yourself, and it'll send you a password reset email that you can reset your password. The password reset email goes to your preferred email, the same one that you use to sign in. However, if it can and has been known to get into the spam filter. So if you don't see it in your inbox, check your spam or your junk folder. And to help reduce that from happening, if you add the CPA-SK domain to your trusted sender list, that shouldn't happen. So if you are having issues with some emails from the, especially the computer generated ones from our portal not coming, that is a good way to get them to work. So I hope that helps. And back to you, Leah.
Thank you, Michelle. And Michelle's going to continue to share her screen for our newest CPA Saskatchewan team member, which is Joyce Urbano. So hi, Joyce. And Joyce is going to walk you guys through some of the questions that we had about updating your contact information with CPA Saskatchewan. So I think our fake Joe Waterfront is going to log in again. And Joyce, over to you.
Thank you, Leah. Yes, Leah said, I'm Joyce. I'm the Regulatory Coordinator in CPA Saskatchewan. I will go through on how you enter your basic information in our member portal. So basically, when you sign in, as Michelle taught us, when you sign in, it will take a little while to load the portal. So you click the profile. And in the profile, you will see the information, your basic information. So the gray ones is the one that you cannot change. And the white one that we can enter our information, your information. Example, the work phone. And if you want to change your employer, you can use only the drop-down list. The select employer drop-down list. If your employer is not in the drop-down list, you can email a registrar to add with the information of your new employer, and we will do the needful for you. We will do it on your behalf. And always, you can see in each tab there is a save changes to make sure that you don't forget to save your changes. Okay, and if you want to change you can also change your home address. Yeah, and if you want to change your preferred email, you have to email the registrar as well to do it for you. But the secondary, you can easily put it in the member portal. So there are the information that just to make sure the information that you cannot update in our member portal is, example, if you change your legal name. But if you email, you have to email the registrar. And if you email registrar, make sure you send us also the copy of your marriage certificate, or driver's license, and the passport to verify the change of your legal name, and the employer that is not in the drop-down list, and the change of preferred email. So that's all for me, Leah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce. So continuing with the registration theme, we did have quite a few questions for the team about when to register a firm and what services would trigger that, and what are the main requirements. And the best person in our office to answer that question is Vanessa Kohlenberg, who's our Associate Director of Registration. So I'm going to share my screen and show you some components that are on the CPA Saskatchewan website to aid in that information. And over to you, Vanessa. Oh, Vanessa, you're on mute.
There, okay. Got it. Okay, that works better. Yes, so I deal with all types of registrations here at the office, and on our website, we have made a lovely flow chart to help members determine if registration or licensing is required, depending on the type of service being offered to clients. So if you're providing services, I know it's a little bit small, but you can see it on our website as well, but other regulated service listed there will require registration of a firm. So, and if you're providing professional accounting services listed on the flow chart, you would also require a license. So you would need a firm registration and a license. So if you're operating the firm in a corporate structure, or maybe as a partner at a registered firm, a member must do this through a registered professional corporation. This includes registering the professional corporation at Information Services Corporation, or ISC, and providing the profile report along with your professional corporation application. The initial registration fee for a professional corporation is $150 and the renewal is $75. As you'll note, there are specific naming requirements noted highlighted on the screen that you will have to follow when you're selecting a name. And you will be required to request the name approval to the email registrar at cpask.ca. Once you receive approval, the required applications will be emailed to you to complete. Firms must also provide professional liability insurance for coverage to confirm that they meet the minimum requirements, depending on how many CPAs are working at the firm. We've included two.
Vanessa, if you could just hold your microphone back closer to your mouth. I think some people are having trouble hearing you. Yeah.
I'll try to do it midway. Okay. We've included two common providers on our websites that they're familiar with the requirements, but you may obtain a quote from another provider, but just make sure they have the appropriate coverage. And we need to see a copy of the insurance certificate along with your application forms. That's about all kind of in a generally how registration works, and the Nick will probably go into more of the fee structure and that. So yeah.
All right, thanks, Vanessa. So just for ease of reference, whenever I do share a component of the CPA Saskatchewan website, I am going to post the link in the chat, so you have that for ease of reference information while the presenter is speaking. If you're finding it difficult to see the screen that I'm sharing, then please do follow along on that specific page of the website. So thank you so much, Vanessa. And now I'm going to we're going to switch on over to licensing, which is closely related to firm registration. And for that, we have our Director of Monitoring, Jen Zer, who's the be all and end all of licensing at CPA Saskatchewan, as far as I'm concerned. So Jen, over to you to talk about licensing.
Hey, thanks, Leah. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So as Leah mentioned, a good portion of my role is oversight of licensing. So I will be addressing your questions and other common questions that we've received along the way on licensing. So just to provide an overview of what licensing even means, the previous screen that was up that Vanessa went over was the flow chart on registration versus licensing. I just want to re-emphasize that there is an important distinction between them. All of our members are registered to be a member with CPA Saskatchewan, and only those members who are practicing in professional accounting specifically require a license. So this is in addition to your registration, then you would also be licensed. So you hear us use those terms very often in our presentations, and including this one, and also in our newsletter and emails. So they are not the same thing and require different things from our members. And so as we understand that navigating the various requirements can be tricky, we do try to provide as much guidance and materials on our website as possible. And then also in our newsletters on our licensing topics. So kind of as an aside topic and a little bit of a plug that I want to put out there, we have received lots of feedback in a positive way on our Focus on Firms newsletter, and that it is valuable to you. We're very happy to hear that feedback. And I just want to let you know that for those who've joined us today, if you would like to author any articles for us, we would be very thrilled to have that. And then also, if you have any topics that you would like us to include in our newsletter, please share them with us. We want to make sure that we're providing content to you that is the most valuable and that you can use to serve your clients. You can also look through these to find answers to regular questions that we receive. So back to the licensing requirements. So when we say the practice of professional accounting, what do we mean by that? And then what do you mean by licensed CPA? So the practice of professional accounting includes carrying out audits, reviews, all other assurance engagements, compilations, or financial reporting opinions or advice that reference the professional standards within the CPA Canada Handbook. This work must be done by a licensed CPA. So going along with that, we do get questions often on, does everyone at the firm need to be licensed to do this work? And the answer is no. A member requires a license when they are in a position within a registered firm as a practice leader to authorize the professional accounting engagement. And as soon as one member within the firm qualifies to be licensed, then the firm becomes licensed. So not everyone at the firm needs to be licensed. Again, this is only required for the practice leader within the firm signing off or authorizing the engagement report. So as Leah has up there, that blue box, it's a summary of all of the minimum license qualifications. And I know it's probably a little hard to read, but there are 3 different types of licenses, and each allow that licensed member to do different things. A comprehensive license covers all of the areas of the practice of professional accounting. A specified license allows review engagements and other assurance and compilations. And then we have a compilation license, which is new for this year, and that allows the member to authorize compilation engagements. So to be able to refer to yourself as a licensed CPA, you must make an application for this first. Manual application forms are available for the comprehensive and specified license applications. And then if you want to make a compilation license application, we do have this available online. So there is a link that we have included. It's on, as you can see on the screen, a far right side of the screen. And that will give you all of the details on making the compilation license application. So flipping back, Leah is going back and forth across the screens, but back to the qualifications for licensing. I won't go through each of the qualifications in detail. It is on our website in detail for you, but I will go over a number of common questions that we get about these qualifications. So the first requirement listed is the education requirement. And once this requirement is met on initial application, it doesn't need to be continually met afterwards. When this requirement is not met, either through the CPA professional education program or through a legacy program, the member does have to successfully complete the post-designation public accounting program or request exemption to this through like in lieu of continuous employment at a firm for a number of years. And all of our exemption requests are reviewed and approved by the professional practice committee. So because the focus areas in the legacy CGA and CMA education programs were on different technical competency areas, those members who undertook their education program in those legacy designations do not satisfy the education requirement for the assurance-based licenses. The education requirement is met upon meeting membership requirements for the compilation license application. So moving into the practical experience side, we do get, especially right now, because it's license renewal time, we're wrapping up, I guess, license renewal time for members, is the timeline for reporting your practical experience hours. So really, this is up to you on the timeline that you would like to select. Typically, members are picking December 1st to November 30th, and this is because the license renewal is due on December 1st. Or they're choosing to use a calendar year basis, or really any period within the year that's a 12-month period. The only requirements that we have is that it's consistently applied each year. Reasonable estimates are able to be made. So say if you choose to use a calendar year basis and it's still the beginning of December, if you make a reasonable estimate to the end of December, that is just fine. Anything that doesn't look usual or typical of past reporting, we do follow up on, and we can follow up on that now during license renewal or when the firm undergoes their next practice inspection. So another question we get is on what qualifies as practical experience hours? Do I have to be a member to account those, or can I use candidate time or engagements completed? And the answer is that the requirements are based on yourself as a member. So any experience that was gained as a candidate does not qualify for the license application. So moving into CPD, I think this is probably the one area that we have the most questions on for sure, is what CPD does count for a license. And this one's a really tough question to answer, and there's about a number of them for today that were provided to us. So hopefully I can cover your question, but certainly if you have anything further, please email licensing with your questions. But anyway, there's so many examples and so many options out there. So being prescriptive is really, really difficult for us. But just overall, for the assurance-based licenses, so the comprehensive and specified licenses, the CPD for this is a little bit more prescriptive because the work done under those license types requires more specialization. So CPD taken directly in audit engagements, review engagements, assurance topics, and all other financial reporting topics would qualify for these license types. For the compilation licenses, CPD is a little bit less prescriptive and allows for different topics to be allocated. The requirement is 10 hours of CPD specific to compilation engagements or PD that enhances skills in areas such as leadership, communication, documentation, professional judgment. Those would also qualify. It is expected for the compilation license that the practitioner take at least some CPD specific to compilations over the 3-year period, just to address their knowledge, understanding, and application of the new standard. So up to 5 hours over the 3-year period can be allocated to tax courses. So this, just to clarify, because I get lots of questions, it's not 5 hours per year in tax, it's 5 hours over the 3 years. Our website does list a number of courses that would meet the requirements for licensing. Leah, if you want to bring up that for me. So in here, the PD courses are listed by competency. And under financial reporting, that is where you would find those relating to compilation licensing specifically. So right now, there are a couple of courses that are available as video on demand. And then also under the assurance or audit and assurance competency area, if you want to scroll back up, Leah. So within this, there is the standards on the new Canadian standard on quality management. There are courses listed here. So I would strongly recommend to be taking those courses for those of you who are on today that are licensed and carrying out compilations or even assurance work, because this new standard is effective right away in a few days for the assurance-based practices. And so taking some courses video on demand to make sure you've got yourself knowledgeable of what's going on with that standard is very strongly recommended. There is an overview of the standard being offered virtually in January too. So, and that is for providers of non-assurance services, or it's targeted for that. So if you're looking for some courses in January, that would be one that I would recommend select. We are continually working to improve our guidance materials to provide more examples and details on what qualifies and does not. However, as I noted before, it's really difficult for us to be very specific in our examples because there are so many options and opportunities out there, not only through CPA Saskatchewan and CPA Canada, but there's a number of other providers who have this information also available. So really, it's up to you to think about what areas you need to build on your skills with, and then take the PD that will address those areas. So moving into the last requirement for licensing is on the competency assessment. Again, get a few questions on this, especially this time of year for license renewal. So on initial application, the competency assessment must be provided by another licensed member. And then for the compilation license specifically, the applicant has the option to undergo practice inspection in lieu of obtaining this assessment. For the compilation license, there is no prescribed forms for carrying out the competency assessment. Instead, the person who's providing the assessment would consider the applicant's processes and methodologies for complying with CSRS 4200. The same thing would be considered by the licensed member on their renewal for their self-assessment. So just to clarify, there is no forms to complete for the competency assessment for a compilation license specifically. But for the assurance-based licenses, on the renewal form, you can select to either provide the name of another licensed member, or you can go through the check boxes of all of the requirements for competency that are based on the International Education Standard IES 8. We do also have a copy of that form available if you would like to have that. We do have a link that we could send over to you if you want a copy of that form. So overall, once you go through all of these steps to either make the application or do the renewal, we do have a nice handy option now for members to go online, and we won't be able to show it to you because we didn't get that ready to demo. I just thought of it now. But you can proceed online into the member portal to review your license information at any time. We've showed you before where you go to find your demographic information. So it's found in the same place. It's under your profile. And then there is a tab for a license. And you would go through that and review the information within it to make sure everything looks correct. And a PDF of the license document can be saved if you wish, and you can also display that within your office if you'd like to too. If you do note any errors or anything incorrect, you please notify us right away at licensing@cpask.ca. Or again, if there's any other questions that I didn't get to in my discussion today, please send us an email and we will send you an answer and direct you to where to find it on our website. Back over to Leah.
Thank you so much, Jen. So one of the things I just want to highlight about licensing, there obviously are a tremendous amount of qualifications associated with being a licensed CPA in Saskatchewan. And if we go back to the flow chart that's being shown on the screen, the reason for that is because the area of executing audit, review, other assurance and compilation engagements under CSRS 4200 is reserved to licensed CPAs in Saskatchewan. Meaning if a non-member or a CPA who is not licensed executes one of those reports, they can be subject to a cease and desist process. If you, as a practitioner or a CPA in business, encounter a report like an audit or a review or a CSRS 4200 report that's signed by a non-member or a CPA who is not licensed, you should provide that report to CPA Saskatchewan. It is an anonymous process. We don't advise the individual who provides us the report, but we do provide them the evidence that we've obtained that they've executed that. So it is a reserved area of practice to licensed CPAs. It's an area we clearly take very, very seriously, which is why there are so many rigorous qualifications. Anyway, so I just want to highlight that and just sort of reemphasize that. Jen, there are a couple of questions in the chat, so not maybe to belabor the licensing bit, but there's a question about interprovincial licensure. So I assume that's individuals in Saskatchewan executing reports in other jurisdictions. And then there's also a question about the competency assessment and what it means to choose to have a practice inspection on compilations. Wondering if you could spare a couple minutes just to answer those quick questions that have come in the chat.
Sure. So interprovincial licensing requirements. Really, once you become licensed in Saskatchewan, because of labor mobility legislation across Canada, you are able to practice at that same equivalent license level within another jurisdiction within Canada. You do still have to make an application within that other province to do so. However, the requirements kind of translate over. It's a mostly seamless process to be able to do that. It depends also if you've got a registration in that province already. So the first step would be to contact that province to make sure you've got the proper registration and then the equivalent to licensing. Some of the terminology across Canada is a little bit different than using the word licensing, but it all kind of means the same. And then in terms of the competency assessment and having a practice inspection in lieu of that, that I guess interpretation of the rule was permitted by the Rules Committee and our Professional Practice Committee to allow for those who've been practicing in compilations for a number of years and didn't have someone that they were working with closely that they felt could provide the competency assessment for them. They would instead undergo practice inspection of at least 2 completed engagement files under the new CSRS 4200 standard. And so long as that was successful and they didn't require to undergo reinspection, then that would satisfy the competency assessment piece for their application. If it was not successful, then they would be required to obtain this, or if that couldn't be carried out, then really the available option would be that they would have to, I guess, cancel their license and then try to work with another license firm for a time period to gain that competency assessment. Hopefully that answers those questions.
There are no more in the chat, so I would take that as an affirmative. Thanks so much, Jen. So as Jen mentioned, we're wrapping up license member renewal right now, and last Thursday started firm renewal. And so to answer some of the questions related to firm renewal and professional corporation renewal, I'm going to pass it over to Nick Carteri. So Nick, who's our, Associate Director of Data Management. I forgot to introduce your title. My apologies. Nick, over to you.
That's okay. So my name is Nicholas Carteri, like Leah said. So to build on what Vanessa was speaking about earlier, I will be speaking to the firm registration renewal. And Leah's on our website right now. This is the firm renewal page that we can go to. We publish a firm guide here, and there's also a firm renewal walkthrough video as well. So if you have any questions after our discussion, you can go to our website and find some additional information there. So as some of you know, on this webinar, firm renewal happens every December to renew your firm registration for the upcoming year. A common question we get at this time of year is how to complete the firm roster upon firm renewal. And to answer this, I will be walking you through our firm renewal guide, which Leah has opened here, I believe. So after logging into your firm account, completing the first section of the firm renewal form, you are taken to the firm roster tool. Our firm roster tool is available only through the renewal form at this time. One more page.
I know it's blurry. Sorry. Okay, I'm just waiting for it to.
Yeah, it's loading.
Okay.
Yeah. So as you can see at the top of the page, here are your roster totals for your firm. These are updated in real time as you make changes to your roster. So to remove someone from your roster, you would click on the drop-down box under the role column and select remove. To add someone, you would click on add a CPA and then find employee. You can type in the name of the person in the prompts there. But please note that you won't be able to add CPA candidates to your roster, only CPA members. So what do each of these roles mean? Well, a CPA licensed member is a member within the firm who holds a comprehensive, specified, or compilation license, as Jen was speaking about earlier. License fees this year are paid entirely through the firm now. So if a CPA member is licensed at all, regardless of if they're a partner at the firm, they will appear on your roster as a CPA licensed member. It is not advised to make any changes to any CPA licensed member on your roster, but if you must, please just email us first to confirm that. A CPA practice leader is a member within the firm who is not licensed, but signs or issues reports under other regulated services, like Vanessa was talking about earlier, such as taxation services or maybe management accounting. A CPA employee is a member within the firm who is neither licensed nor a practice leader. And this also includes any contractors you may have hired at the firm. And finally, a CPA candidate is a candidate who is registered in the CPA professional education program, so CPA PEP, and is employed by the firm. So scrolling down, another common question we get is, if I have a professional corporation, do I renew it under my member account or my firm account? So if you work at a firm, so you are a CPA employee, for example, and you have a registered professional corporation under your name personally, you would renew that professional corporation through your member account. So like Michelle had shown you earlier, you would log in with your preferred email address and you'll find the renewal on your member account. Now, if you are practicing through your own registered firm and it is in a corporate form, so maybe you're a sole practitioner, you would need to renew your professional corporation under your firm account. So you'll log in with your firm ID and you'll find the renewal there. And this is what the professional corporation renewal will look like. And now I'll pass it back to Leah.
All right, thanks, Nick. So there is a question in the chat related to firm renewal. If the employees are bookkeeping staff with no CPA designation and not a CPA candidate, do they get listed?
So no, they would not be listed. They're not a CPA and they're not registered within the CPA PEP program through the Western School of Business. They would not be listed on your roster. No.
Awesome, thanks, Nick. So one of the key components of firm registration and firm renewal is professional liability insurance. Vanessa touched on it briefly, but the person in our office who spends the most time dealing with PLI compliance is Bakiza Batul, who is a regulatory coordinator in the monitoring area. So I'm going to pass it over to Bakiza to go through PLI compliance, and I believe I'm going to stop sharing, Michelle, and you're going to show the form again. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. Over to you, Bakiza.
Thank you, Leah. As Leah said, I'm Pakisa, coordinator for CPD and monitoring. And I will be explaining professional liability insurance requirements and then the steps to enter the professional liability insurance information online. So every firm must have professional liability insurance policy and update their PLI information online once they receive the certificate from the provider and make the PLI declaration. For the firms engaged in the practice of professional accounting, compilation engagements, or taxation services, the minimum requirements are 1 million where one member is engaged or employed in the same firm, 1.5 million where 2 or 3 members are engaged or employed in the same firm, or 2 million where 4 or more members are engaged or employed in the same firm. These minimum requirements are per occurrence and in aggregate, and coverage for defense costs shall be in addition to these requirements. Some common preferred providers that we recommend and are familiar with the CPA requirements are CPA Professional Liability Plan and ProLink Insurance. So, Michelle, if you can please display the form on screen. To enter the PLI information, you should log into your firm portal using your firm ID number as your username. Under My Profile, when you click on Professional Liability Insurance tab, this form will appear on screen to update. So first, you need to confirm, have you renewed your insurance or do you have a current PLI policy? Then under the insurance details section, enter provider name, policy number, amount of coverage, effective and expiry date of the policy. Next, confirm the coverage limit is per occurrence and in aggregate, and then whether the defense cost is separate from the minimum requirements. If you are unsure how to answer this question, please contact your provider to get this information. Lastly, under the PLI declaration section, read the declaration carefully, enter the date, and hit submit. You are not required to send us your PLI certificate unless we request that. Your PLI policy has lapsed or your coverage amount is below the minimum requirements, you will make PLI lapse declaration in the declaration section. In that case, the status of your firm will go in default. You will be required to complete and submit the PLI lapse declaration form with your current PLI policy certificate. The link to the PLI lapse form will be provided in the declaration section. Back to Leah.
Thank you, Pakiza. There was a question in the chat about who do we contact for CPA professional liability insurance. I did provide the link to the website, and if you scroll down on the when to register a firm, there is a section for PLI providers. As Vanessa and Pakiza mentioned, we do have 2 providers that we work with more than others, saying that you are welcome to seek out insurance from other providers in the market, but you do want to ensure that you are reading your insurance policy very carefully to ensure that it complies with the requirements of the profession. I don't have anything else on that, Pakiza, but do you have any other thoughts on that question? Does that make
No,
sense?
you provided a link to contact them, then they can contact and
Perfect. All right. Well, we saved the best for last always with CPD. In our Ask the Regulator, in the request to get questions in advance, we did get the most questions about CPD and specifically CPD exemptions. We do have a significant amount of resources available, and our resident CPD expert is Marilyn Flaman. She also happens to be a practice inspector, which we're very grateful for. She's our Associate Director of Monitoring in CPD. So with that, Marilyn, I'll pass it over to you to talk about CPD. And I will share my screen so that you can see the CPD pages.
Perfect. Thanks, Leah. So as mentioned, I do work with the monitoring team to oversee our members' CPD compliance. And I could talk about CPD all day, but I only have a 10-minute slot, so I'll try and stay within that. First thing I wanted to show on our website, we've developed a number of resources that we hope are helpful to help you to proactively plan your CPD compliance. So if you just scroll down on this page a little bit, Leah. There's a section that'll have all of the links to our resources. So in the green box is our guide to CPD reporting. This is a really great read. It's reviewed and approved by our registration committee and has a lot of really good information to help you work through the CPD requirements. Page 5 of the guide also lays out the documentation requirements for verifiable CPD. So this is one of our most referenced resources within this area. We also have an area called the CPD self-assessment tool that we developed, and it just goes a little bit deeper into helping you apply your professional skepticism to assess whether activities qualify for CPD in your specific circumstance. There's a link to our CPD plan template on here as well. And then we've added a new resource called the CPD tracking spreadsheet. This is available for optional use. We developed it this year as we worked through our CPD verification process. And this would allow you to track the linkage between what you learned in the CPD courses you've attended, the technical competencies required of your role, and then just to tie in the linkage between the two in case you are ever selected for CPD verification in a future year. With this resource, we've also proposed a few advancements or enhancements to our CPD reporting tool on the member portal, where we'll enter an optional field where you can put in a description of what you've learned and how it links to your role as well, so that that can be documented as part of your CPD record moving forward. On this page as well, in the colored boxes, we've listed out the technical and enabling competencies. These are approved by CPA Canada, and any of learning activities that you are reporting need to support one or more of these competencies to be considered a qualifying CPD activity. So as you're reflecting and planning for your CPD for this upcoming year, if you take a second to read through these competencies and become very familiar with them, it'll help you to be able to link your planned activities back to the competencies you use in your everyday work role. And then a little bit further down, there's a section on ethics CPD hours, and this provides some additional guidance on some of the topics that would generally qualify for allocation as ethics hours. So these are some of our resources. Moving into the specific questions, we did have a member ask specifically about study time for a Canadian Securities course from the Canadian Securities Institute, asking if this would qualify towards CPD hours. So we always bring these types of questions back to the basic definition of continuing professional development. For an activity to be recognized towards the requirements, a member must have learned something. They have to be able to quantify that learning in terms of a time requirement, and they have to be able to relate that learning to their current or future professional role as a CPA. So using the Canadian Securities course as an example, if you've learned something and that course supports a specific technical competency that's required for your current or future role, then it meets the definition of a learning activity. But now it becomes a question, is this verifiable or is it unverifiable? So for a learning activity to qualify as verifiable CPD, it has to result in a specific output that can be confirmed by an objective person. So there's no doubt that as CPAs, we are constantly learning in almost every activity in our day. Some of that learning results in outputs and others does not. For example, reading a magazine or reading a book, I can learn an awful lot from that activity, but at the end of it, I don't have an output that I could provide to support the completion of that. So on the CSI website, it indicates that the course is offered as an online format. It has a number of textbook readings, but then it's supported by the completion of a final exam. And when that exam is successfully challenged, then the member would receive a certificate of completion. That certificate of completion proves as the output to that learning activity, thus qualifying it as verifiable. And then finally, when you sit back and you're reporting the hours for a verifiable CPD activity, you have to be able to quantify the hours. So on the website for this specific course, it has a range of 135 to 200 hours. So recognizing that there's some variability in the number of hours that a member would require to successfully complete the course, you would be required to provide a very detailed log of hours to support the total hours that you've reported. The log of hours would be by date, and we would ask that you would retain both the certificate of completeness and the log of hours to support the activity in the event you would be selected for verification. So hopefully that helps explain the process we work through in determining how to categorize a CPD activity. So another question that we received from a member was whether there's a minimum time requirement for qualifying CPD activities, for example, 30 minutes or 60 minutes. So there's no current minimum time requirement for individual learning activities. Our minimum CPD requirements are based on the principle that it's the responsibility of the member to develop and maintain the professional competence necessary to provide high quality services to their employer or to clients. We expect that our members are applying professional skepticism to the activities that they report, and that they are only reporting the portion of an activity where they've been actively learning. That being said, we also encourage our members to aim for balance in their reported CPD. Some activities might be shorter in duration, and they can certainly be reported as a learning that's been achieved, but you'd want to make sure that you're balancing shorter courses with more in-depth and focused learning to ensure that your professional competence is well supported. You can choose to attend 10 hours of a 1-hour webinar at the end of December, but we would challenge you to consider whether that's the best use of your time when time is our limiting resource. Balance is the key to sustaining and enhancing overall well-rounded competence. All right, so the last question that I'm going to respond to here are the exemptions that are available for members for their CPD reporting requirements. And then further to that, if members are semi-retired, then what are their requirements? So I'll ask Leah just to head to the exemptions and reductions section of our website, and I'll point out a few resources that are developed here. So in the green box, we have a video on fee and CPD exemptions. It walks through a bit of a flow chart, and it's very helpful in assessing the applicability of the various exemptions that are available. The orange box is a video on permanent non-practice exemptions and resignations, things to consider if you're in that scenario. And then in the purple box, there is an article on retirement and its impact on the CPA designation. So if you are moving into a period of transition within your professional role, I'd strongly encourage you to access these resources. Exemptions and reductions from fees in CPD are built into our rules for members who are either ceasing practice, winding down, or temporarily leaving practice. And exemptions fall into two categories. We have non-practice exemptions and we have special circumstances exemptions. I'll deal with them each in order. So to qualify for a non-practice exemption, a member must no longer be engaged in the workforce, such that there is no reliance on their technical competency. This can be temporary. For example, a member may have ceased practicing for at least 12 months, but they do have an intention to return to work. Or these could be permanent, in which the member has no intention of returning to work. Qualifying non-practice CPAs are exempt from fees and the CPD requirement, but they have to suffix the use of the designation with the phrase non-practicing. And the reason for this is that we don't want any unintended reliance on their technical competence. Regardless of whether an exemption for non-practice is temporary or permanent, a member has to apply for this exemption annually at spring renewal, up until the time that they turn 70 years of age. The second bucket for exemptions is called special circumstances, and these are income-based exemptions. So they're available when a member is earning less than $30,000 in a calendar year. This would include earnings from active employment or self-employment, regardless of whether the income is earned through a traditional accounting role. If a member earns less than $10,000 in a calendar year, then they're exempt from fees and CPD. If they earn between $10,000 and $30,000 in a year, they pay reduced fees, but they have to meet the full CPD requirement. Applications for exemptions and reductions are processed during spring renewal for the upcoming year. So we encourage you to proactively reach out to us to discuss exemptions if your professional circumstances change, so that we can help guide you through the process of applying for the appropriate exemption. It's important to note that members who are offering services to the public that would require either registration as a firm or licensure would not qualify for an exemption under our rules. So if there are extenuating circumstances, like serious unforeseen medical issues that arise, we require that these members put forward a request to our registration committee for consideration. So if something does happen, please reach out to us and let's discuss the options that are available to you. And then I just wanted to put in a little plug at the end here. I don't have a whole lot of time, but we did put in an article in our fall 2022 member newsletter. It has the results of our 2019 to 2021 CPD verification program, and there's a cyclical process that we've proposed when you are proactively planning your CPD activities. So it is a good read, and if you have some time, if you want to access that, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us at monitoring@cpask.ca.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marilyn. So there is a question in the chat, and it's one that we've received often, which is, when will the 2023 CPD tracking be available? Currently, it is only available from May onward. The earlier availability would be splendid. Do you maybe want to speak about some of the plans that are, you already talked a little bit about some of the plans for the spring renewal changes, but maybe let's just touch on that one really quick if we can.
For sure. This is definitely an enhancement that we're looking at making to the member portal as soon as we're able to roll that out. Typically what happens, we roll forward the tracking table on your MyCPD page on July 1st after spring renewal has wound up for the year. We're hoping to put in an refinement to it so that once you've made your CPD declaration, the table would automatically roll forward to the next year to allow you to proceed to track and to plan for your CPD. So just keep your ear to the ground on this one. We'll hopefully have some exciting news to share on that as we develop it a little further.
Thank you so much. There's no more questions in the chat on CPD. And that sort of concludes the staff presentations, but I would be remiss not to take this opportunity to get a couple of things in myself as the registrar at CPA Saskatchewan. So the first thing that I'll say is we really do try to spend a lot of time and effort as staff to put reasonable resources on our website for your reference. We know that a lot of our regulation, you want to make sure that you're complying with it, and people are taking a lot of due care to ensure that they understand the requirements and that they're taking the proper actions so that they don't end up in a little bit of trouble. So with that being said, we really did try to show you today where some of those resources were on the CPA Saskatchewan website. For other tips and tricks, please do follow us again on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We share professional resources on those platforms often, in addition to the emails that we send out. Almost all of our advisory articles and communications will be presented in the member or the firm newsletter. And we are always looking for member written and member sourced articles to put in there. Not that you don't love hearing from your regulator on a fairly reasonable basis, but it is important for us to make sure that there's a member perspective and that members are helping members with the compliance in a manner that's correct and accurate. So with that being said, there are a couple of contact points that we'll put in the chat. So for registration related matters, including exemptions, you should email registrar@cpask.ca. For things related to licensing, the licensing at cpask.ca. And for matters related to practice inspection, practice administration reviews, CPD, and exemptions, you can contact monitoring at cpask.ca. Regardless of where you send your email, we will do our very best to get it to the right person for the best response so that your individual circumstances can be addressed. The other thing that I wanted to note, there were a couple of questions that came through in the submissions related to the application of ethical principles. And I really do appreciate those questions coming forward. So if you're observing unethical behavior on the part of another CPA, you as a CPA have a duty to report that behavior under our current code of conduct. It's Rule 211 for those who maybe don't have the governing documents as memorized. And that's available. All the governing documents are available on our website. But if you're observing unethical behavior or you have concerns, whether you're an employee, a partner, or on a board or in a governance position of an organization, there are typically also policies that may exist within those organizations for whistleblowing to ensure that the concerns are properly escalated. But ultimately, if you have evidence of that unethical behavior, we encourage you to report that to CPA Saskatchewan. Where necessary, that matter may be investigated, or there may be an attempt at a resolution, depending on the circumstances. If you have any questions about application of an ethical scenario, we treat those very confidentially, and we'll work with you to try to identify a potential solution to any concern that you may have. You can send those directly to complaints@cpask.ca or to myself or to registrar. Like I said, if you send an email into the office, we will do our very best to get it to the right person for the best response. So with that, we had planned about an hour and so for technical presentation material. The session is scheduled to go to 1 o'clock. So if there are other questions, please feel free to post them in the chat, or you can send them directly to me and we will happily answer them. If not, this recording will be posted on our website, and we will distribute it, like I said, on social media and likely in our member emails. And maybe the most obvious question that's nobody's asking, since Marilyn's gone through the technical CPD criteria, is does this session count for verifiable CPD, and does it count towards my ethics hours? We aren't naive to hosting a free session called Ask Your Regulator in December might be attractive to those individuals who may be moderately short on their ethics verifiable CPD. And of course, the answer is it depends on whether or not you've learned something. Whether it's relevant to your current or professional role, you can quantify it and you have documentation to support it. We will vouch for your attendance if you have attended this recording. All right, I'm not seeing anything else pop up in the chat. And with that, I will let the 60 of you who have attended today get back to your very busy schedules and days. And thank you so much for your time and attention and interest. And thanks to the amazing team here at CPA Saskatchewan for presenting these technical topics for which they are subject matter experts. It definitely makes my life a lot easier to be supported and surrounded by such incredible people. So thanks to the team, thanks to everyone who came, and I wish you the best this holiday season. Thank you.